most active at elevated temperatures. So yogurt requires some incubation, or creating a warm temperature zone to support this thermophilic activity. The way I do it, which is pretty simple and uses tools that most people have in their household, is I take an insulated cooler and I preheat it with warm water. So I bring it up to the target temperature, which is between 110 and 115 degrees Fahrenheit. And then meanwhile, I take the milk that I want to turn into yogurt and I heat it up even warmer than that. Usually my target is about 180 degrees Fahrenheit. And basically, this heating does a couple of different things. I mean, first of all, it sort of kills any bacteria that are in the milk, so that there's sort of nothing to compete with the bacteria that you're introducing, right. Which are the yogurt bacterias. And then also, the heating denatures the proteins, which enables them to be restructured by the bacterial fermentation, and that's really the magic that re-knits a liquid milk into a solid, which is what yogurt is. So that's what makes it kind of challenging, is because there's all this temperature manipulation involved. So I heat it up to 180, and then I cool it down to about 115, and then I introduce a small amount of the starter, which is just a mature batch of yogurt, and then I get it into that incubator and hold it between 110 and 115 degrees Fahrenheit. 4 to 8 hours in that range is generally plenty of time to get the yogurt to set, become solid.
Now, how do you maintain that temperature inside that cooler for all of that time? Because the warm water you put in has been poured out, hasn't it?
Well, I usually actually leave the warm water in. So I try to get it up to the top of that range, 115 degrees, right. And then I also preheat the jars that I add the milk and the yogurt culture to, and I usually leave the thermometer in there, and then somewhere after a few hours, I'll just briefly open it up and look at the thermometer, and if it seems like it needs warming up, I'll add a little bit of boiling water just to bring it back up a few degrees.
Now, what about the culture? I can use a yogurt, would be a plain yogurt, right? That I buy in the store.
I mean, you could use any plain yogurt as a starter. The problem is that that'll be great for one batch. It'll be pretty good for the second batch. By the third, fourth, fifth generation, it will be less and less yogurt-like. After wondering about this, kind of paradox for some years, because of course, how could a food have gotten passed down for generation after generation if it didn't really have the ability to effectively perpetuate itself? I finally got a hold of what I would call an heirloom yogurt culture, which is really different than the ones that are in use by commercial manufacturers. The commercial manufacturers are using starters based upon isolated bacterial strains, a couple of them added together, whereas the traditional heirloom cultures were literally these evolved communities of bacteria that have a structure to them, and part of that structure is really defense strategies to sort of protect themselves as a community from other random bacteria in the environment. So these heirloom cultures, which are available online if you search for them, really can give you something that you can use over and over and over again. And I would estimate that I've done about 60 generations from the Bulgarian heirloom culture that I've been using.
Can you control that flavor and texture with the kind of culture that you use? Or is it the amount of fat in the yogurt? Or is it the time? Tell me how I can make the yogurt I'm dreaming of.
It's everything you've just mentioned, Lynn. I mean, the culture itself has implications for the flavor because, cultures that evolved in different places have different microbial communities, and each community has certain unique aspects which can contribute unique aspects to the flavor. But time always plays a role because in any fermentation, the acids accumulate over time. So, a longer fermentation always has the potential to be more acidic than a shorter fermentation. So if you specifically prefer a sharper flavor, the solution would be to ferment it for a longer time. The type of milk certainly also has implications for the flavor and the texture. One technique that I learned from a woman from Turkey is if you want your yogurt to be thick, hold it at that 180 degree heat for 15 minutes before you cool it down. And just the evaporation that happens during that time, you'll be starting with a thicker milk and ending with a thicker yogurt. And also you can strain the yogurt after it's fermented. I mean, that's how most of the Greek yogurts are made. You take a few layers of cheesecloth or any kind of a clean cotton cloth and put the yogurt in it and then hang it, and you'll just have whey dripping out of that. And you can make it a little bit thicker, or you can make it a lot thicker, something like cream cheese, or even a harder cheese than that, all depending upon how long you leave it dripping.
You are the master, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lynn.
Sandor Katz is author of The Art of Fermentation. Now, start your fermenting by following his yogurt making guide, and it's on the website, splendidtable.org. The LA food scene, at least for me, is synonymous with Jonathan Gold. Jonathan says in his bio that he's forged a career out of the professional eating of tacos. Ah, the modesty. He's a restaurant critic for the